Okay, this is a very exciting episode for me because I get to geek out on task management and productivity with my friend Monisha. Monisha, can you say who you are and what you do?
Hello. Yes, my name is Monisha Longacre. I am the founder of Productivity 101, the author of Practical Productivity, and creator of Priorigami, a personal task management app. And then on the side, I serve as a COO in a couple different roles, helping small to mid-sized companies scale, grow, and be efficient.
Yeah, sounds like a lot. Sounds like you need to make sure you're very productive.
Well, when I was writing the book, somebody asked me, "How are you writing the book and doing everything that you're doing?" And I said, "Well, I followed what's in my book."
Yeah, it's good, pretty handy. Okay, so this book, I loved it when. Full disclosure, my publishing company Ripples Media is the partner with Monisha on this book, so we were thrilled to get a chance to work with her and publish this. When the team told me we had signed you way back in the day, I was so pumped because I just love this topic.
Yes.
I love it so much. So, okay, I know you share some of these stories in the book, but let's just go back. When did you become someone who was task oriented, who was, a get it done type of person? Because I think we all have friends who, some are very like detailed and they have a list and they organize, and then some are just sort of,
Yeah.
seemingly flying by the seat of their pants. Have you always been this person? Did it come to you naturally?
So that's interesting. There are certain things that did, right? I was innately born on time. I don't like being late. I can't remember not having a list. I mean, obviously there was a point in time that I didn't have a list, but I can't remember that. I've always had a list, if not multiple lists of different sorts. And that figuring out the best way to do things has been one of my just innate challenges. Like I always am like, wait, there's got to be a better way to do that, right? So those things came naturally, but there's a lot that hasn't. And a lot in this book I even wrote for myself
Mhm.
because I don't know how to set boundaries. I don't know how to say no. I don't like to ask for help. But all of those things are really essential for being productive, right? What you do and how you do it. Well, how you do it is one thing, but what you're doing is just as important, right? And
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to prioritize is one thing that I had to learn and I'm still learning, right? A lot of these things are still work in progress. It's not one and done. And so when I was thinking about writing this book, it was really thinking about how to help people think about these things so that they can try different elements and see what works best for them. Because there's no one size fits all, right?
Yeah.
And over time, things change, your life changes, circumstances changes. So other things have to step up and take priority. So I really think of it more kind of like a productivity genie on your shelf that you can kind of pull out when you're struggling with something in particular. And you don't necessarily have to read it cover to cover.
Yeah, that I liked that about it, that you can jump around. I also like that you talk more in terms of, I would say, frameworks.
Yeah.
And to your point, like there's different styles for different people, and you also, this is where, like, again, I can go deep on how much I love task management and
Yeah.
to do. It's so boring. My kids are so bored by it. But you also talk about the need for, I think you talk about flow and to step away and all these things. So I guess I'll just frame that by saying I feel like this book can be for anyone, and it also um it doesn't just go so deep into one area or the other. You sort of give grace to both sides, and I found that really, I found it surprising because I'm like, oh yeah, productivity, here we go, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I do need to slow down sometimes and step away.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think people associate productivity with work, right?
Mm,
Like, oh my gosh, it's all about productive and creating things and results. But being productive is more holistic than that, right? And that was one thing that I had to come to terms with because, I think I talk about how I had this vision of work life balance and I had this pie chart where I could put, a third, a third, a third. And then I realized, gosh, life doesn't work that way. It just, I can't compartmentalize it and control it that way. And that you really kind of have to look at the holistic view and figure out, okay, what are the things that need to get done? And then what's the best way to get it done? Right. And there's sometimes where you're just done, you're beat, you're burnout. And guess what? Nothing good is going to happen out of that. So, how do you start realizing that prioritizing self care or prioritizing deep thinking is just as important as, answering 50 million emails, which you
Yeah,
could do all day. We could
that's
literally
right.
I say this, I was like, you could literally go to work and just answer emails and go to meetings for every day. And
Absolutely. This is so interesting because I don't know. I guess I'll ask this. Who did you write this book for? Because then I have a thought of a couple different groups that I don't know if you specifically thought about these. Maybe you did, but like, I'm like, oh my gosh, these two groups in particular really need this book.
It's been really interesting because I wrote it as from the perspective of a busy mom, right? Like
Mm,
the mom who's trying to do it all. And there was a point at which I was like, this is a lie. I can't do it all. I really felt like I was struggling. And that's that juggling act, right? Where you're trying to be the best employee, the best manager, the best mom, the best wife. You're trying to be all of these different things all at the same time. But it's been very interesting getting the reaction from people because I'm finding that's just one role, right? I've heard from a number of people now that this is a really good book for people who are new to the workplace, like graduates, young professionals, because they're not taught these kinds of things, right? They're taught a lot of things in school and in college, but nobody's really teaching them how to manage their time, how to prioritize, how to make effective decisions. When do you delegate? When do you not? All these, these softer skills that, quite honestly, nobody taught me. I had to learn over, a long career, and also reading and trying and experimenting. And so I kind of think of it as it's a compendium of all these different strategies that I've tried out, and then it's like, here's your cheat sheet, right? Like here's what you should try and see what
yeah.
works for you.
I
Um,
think for as a mom example, like I know my wife, like she's juggling so much, so that makes sense. The two groups I was thinking of, and you sort of hit on one of them is I was thinking even younger than the just recently graduated, like my high school students. It's astounding to me. And why would they have learned this? But I'm like, how do you know what you're going to work on? Oh, I'm just going to sort of figure it out. And it's like, oh my gosh, without a list, I don't even know how you get started. And my kids happen to go to a school that's, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not like where I went to high school, which is like, you're getting your stuff done on time or you're getting in trouble. This is like, oh, try to get it in by Friday, a little of that stuff. And then they're just like, they don't know how to manage that. So I don't know
and
if like
watching them, like,
teenagers, yeah,
it's also been interesting watching them without a calendar. I'm like, how do you
yes,
remember the
crazy.
things?
Crazy. But the real thing I keep going back to with this is entrepreneurs.
Yes,
So as
that's
you talked
true.
about emails coming in, like one of the things that I had to learn as an entrepreneur, but then
Yes,
I as I mentor other entrepreneurs, you know, it's different than most things in life where you literally decide every day what you're going to do. You
that's
you
right.
can get up and you can do all of this or all of that or some of this or some of that. And so it's very easy to go, well, I'm just going to knock out email. And then 3 hours later, that's all you've done because there's no boss telling you what to do. Right. So like being able to prioritize your time, I just think like, this could have been, the entrepreneur's guide to, achieving success could have been this book. So I think it's
Yeah.
going to be helpful for so many different groups of folks.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think a lot of this is having an accountability partner or building that accountability, because when you're an entrepreneur, like you said, you're kind of running the show and setting your own deadlines and setting your own priorities, and speaking with, and having been an entrepreneur myself and speaking with other entrepreneurs, I think that's the hardest part, right? There's just so much you want to do and have to do, and how do you even begin to start to tackle it? And again, I think so much of that is picking the right things.
Mhm. Yeah. And I will say too, you mentioned earlier about writing the book and almost using the things you write about in the book to help you get the book done because a book is the same thing. Like, yes, your publisher will say, hey, you got that draft ready, but it's really up to you. Nothing serious is going to happen if you don't hit that deadline. And I find that our authors at Ripples, for instance, that get their book done in a timely manner, have a system. And maybe it's an accountability partner. I've done that with Joanne Harold, where we've written our books at the same time and like literally text each other. Okay, got my writing done. But our authors that don't have either a partner or they don't have a system, it is hard because you
It is
have
hard.
to make the time for it.
Yeah. We were talking just the other day about the importance of time blocking, right? And that you just have to carve out time. But there are times when you sit down and it's just not coming, right? It's just not flowing. So it's like, give yourself grace, move on, try, and really understand where your energy and focus levels ebb and flow throughout the day, because there are people who are productive at night. There are people who are more creative in the morning. I used to start my day checking emails, and I realized, well, that's my most productive time and I'm wasting it on
Mm,
emails, right? Whereas in the afternoon, where I kind of have an energy dip, I was like, oh, that's perfect to do, that kind of at work. And then I also on time blocking, the other thing that I have found has worked really helpful for me, has been helpful, is double it up, right? So if I block time for writing and it's not coming, I have a backup slot, right?
yeah.
So, and then if I don't use my backup, then it's found time. It's like finding money in a jacket pocket, right? So sometimes, it's like time blocking feels like it's so forced and so rigid, but it doesn't have to be. It's really
Yeah.
just kind of setting aside time to focus. And I think that's one thing that, is a big struggle, especially with where we are technology wise, and also
Mhm.
with the younger generation, is the ability to find time to focus, right? Because it's so easy to be distracted all day long. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles with trying to get things done, is trying to find time to focus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talk in the book, I think I can't remember exactly the phrasing, but like you left your phone at home or something and you were gone, and you're out and about, and you just allowed you to focus more. Right. And I think that's,
Yes.
again, I go back to the kids today. Like, my gosh, if I had a video game system slash, social media, if I had all that in my hand, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to get anything done.
It was interesting because my son was at the Masters this weekend, and you can't have phones,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And so he was talking about how he kept reaching for it or wanted to check the weather or check the time or something. I said, but how did you feel after? She goes, it was great. And it was one of those things that very few kids that age are having that opportunity to just enjoy the moment. And there's that great picture of the end, the last hole, where everybody's watching and there are no phones. You never see that anymore.
Never, never.
So I really try to have no phone times, right? Or no phone zones, where if I really want to focus, and it sounds like, oh gosh, this is horrible, but I don't take it on walks. If you have to focus, I put it in the other room, I pretend like I'm charging it, but it really frees my brain. Like, I notice a difference when it's not right there at my fingertips 24/7.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time my kids can't have their phone, whether they're on like a church mission trip or something,
Yeah.
and they kind of groan about it at the beginning, but then they come back and they loved it. So I totally feel that. Again, that's where I feel like, so on one hand, you talk about when we talk about task management, you talk about I think it's ideal to have a central place where all of your sort of tasks live and that it's easily accessible, which
Right.
typically means digital. But at the same
Yes.
time, you talk about needing to step away. And one of the things I loved so much was you talk about sleep is not wasted time. Oh my
Because
gosh.
I used to think it was.
So good. So did I. So did I. And I guess I don't know, as I got older and I think I read a book on sleep or something, but I'm like, oh yes. And now I try to prioritize. But that was like, again, the fact that that's in this book, just really, it's just a very thoughtful thing to put in a book like this.
Yeah. And again, it was things that I learned the hard way, right? I, for some reason, thought I had to finish my task list every day, and I'd run around at the end of the day and try to do everything, and thinking that, it had to be done. And then I was like, wait a minute, tomorrow's another day, right? And prioritizing the getting to bed at a right time and feeling energized and rested. And, it's restorative too, right? So you can only do as much as you can do if you have the energy to do it and the mindset to do it. And
Mm,
so that was a big aha moment for me. And I do know, and I recognize this too, is that there are times in your life that you can't prioritize sleep. Like, I get that. There are people who are working two jobs. When you have young children, it's really difficult. So then it's like, well, how else are you supplementing that, right? Like, here are some other things that you can do and consider in terms of, just making sure that you're mentally able to tackle the day.
yeah. And one of the things that you talk about and I have found is that just having a list and
Yes.
having a process, like, and I've almost, it can become a weakness for me because if I get stuff down on paper, then I feel like I can sort of walk away. It's there, it's in the right place. But at the very least, like some of my friends and people I know that I think are stressed the most, it's because they've got all these things in their head, and it can fall out in form of a calendar. You talk about a lot about calendar in here, but like, it's a very psychological thing, right? To just
Yeah,
not have all that in your mind and go, oh, what am I going to have to do? And later today, I've got all these things. If you just get it down on paper or in some system,
that's right.
it relaxes you, right?
Yeah, because it gets it out of your head. You're not
Yeah.
thinking about it as much. But it's really interesting. Like 80% of people use calendars, right? Like that's almost a given. But that's not true for the to-do list, which I
Yeah.
think is fascinating because I'm like, it's the same thing. You're trying to manage your time. This will help you manage your to-dos, right? And then it's fascinating because I love to hear how people do it, and all sorts of things like scraps of paper everywhere, people writing things, here and there, and just no real system.
Hmm.
But I think there are a couple of things. One is you don't have to try to remember it, right? Our brains
That's
aren't
right.
very good at remembering things like that. Two, when it comes to prioritizing, everything's all in one place. So, right, you're prioritizing against everything that you have in front of you. You're not trying to remember or compartmentalize. And then three, I think it's not falling through the cracks. Like, how many times are you like, oh, wait, shoot, I forgot about that? Well, now it's all in one place,
Yeah.
right? So and then I do have that app on my phone, so it's with me whenever I need it, but it is peace of mind. You just put it on the list and then you can forget about it. And then I think a lot of people think to-do lists are stressful, and there's one reason why is they don't manage the list,
It just gets
right?
bigger and thicker, and it
Yes.
just sits there, and it's always this thing that's like, hey, you're not taking care of me.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I talk a lot about not that, you create a list, but cultivating your
Yes.
list is the most important, right?
And
And
that's where, is it the Eisenhower method or something you talk
that
about?
is for, yeah, from prioritizing the Eisenhower matrix of urgent,
Matrix.
important really helps you try to figure out, of the things on my list. Because again, in this world, we tend to prioritize urgent, not important,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But the thing about the to-do list that no one ever does, which I encourage greatly, is take things off your list.
Yeah.
Right? You don't, a lot of people just keep adding, 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 and then it just gets overwhelming. Well, guess what? If it's been on your list for 2 weeks and you
Uh-huh.
haven't done it,
Uh-huh.
more than likely it's not that important, right? So let yourself let go of it. Like, let go of it. If it's important, it'll come back.
Yeah. So have you ever used bullet journal?
I've heard of it. I haven't
Okay.
tried that myself, but
So one
yes.
of the things that you'll find this fascinating. It's certainly I don't use the fullness of it,
Right.
which is like, you're able to you're sort of, it's almost like you're creating a notebook where you can
Yes.
reference things back and stuff. But one of the keys of it that I do use is you list all your tasks, okay,
Yeah.
on literally every day on a notebook like
Yes.
this. And here's my favorite part. Every day, every morning, you rewrite that list. So anything
Yes.
you didn't get done gets written again. And by the fifth time you write something, you're like, I either got to do this or it's obviously not important to me,
That's right.
And
Right.
so that's one thing on that. Maybe this is where you can put on your productivity therapist hat for me.
I like
I,
that.
I don't know if this is just me, but when and I know you talk about consistency, so this flies in the face of that, but like I will bounce to a new task management system. I will bounce to even a new email tool. And then I get infused with energy to just be productive. So like
Mm,
Notion, which is my favorite tool to store
yeah.
things, just came out with literally a mail tool yesterday. So it sort of mimics Gmail. So I'm like, oh, I got to try this. And immediately,
Okay.
boom, inbox zero. Like I
Good.
spent hours with it, just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I get excited about it. And I switched back to this bullet journal like 3 weeks ago, and I'm been way more productive, but I know that'll
Yeah.
dwindle. So is that just me? Is that a thing? And is it a problem? You can be honest.
No, I don't think it's a problem at all because that's where your energy comes from, right? Trying new things and figuring it out and seeing what works. The reason I say consistency because again, productivity sounds like work, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, "Oh, managing my list is work. Managing my time is work." And what you don't want to do is waste all your energy on trying to be productive, right? So you don't want it to be this exercise of mental gymnastics every time you're trying to do this stuff. So you want to get to the point where it's just routine and you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say then, the half the things I do in the book, I don't think about. It just
Yeah.
comes. So, ideally you want to get to the point where you really are focused on the deep work and the deep thinking and innovative creative ideas, and that the how you do it isn't getting in the way of that. but for you, you love it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's fantastic. And if that gets you going and gets you energy and gets you pumped, then that's your solution, right? Like you
Yeah.
found what works best for you. So no, I think that's great. I don't think there's
Okay.
anything
Well,
wrong with that.
it feels silly. It feels like, why do I need a new system to get pumped up? But I
But
guess it
what's
works.
genius about it is that you figure that out, right? I think
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
the thing, is figuring out, okay, what actually works for you.
Step one is admitting you have a problem, I guess. So I learned that I have a problem. I'm very curious about, your process for, obviously you have your own tool, but like start the day, like, so we're recording this at 9 a.m. What did you do between waking up and 9 a.m.? I'm always curious about this.
Yeah, the mornings are really important, right? So I do spend a little time just on me. And then my app has a little alert that you can set what time it is. For me, it's 8 a.m. that basically says, set your priorities for the day, right? So I do a quick look on, okay, what are the 3 things that I want to get done? So I call it my daily top 3. 3 is a managing number, manageable number, right? It's easy to remember. And you can literally drag and drop your daily top 3, right? So that's set. And then the next thing I do is I look at my time. What time do I have today? What is my book time and what's my available time, right? What's the time that's open to try to get those 3 things done? And then I slot them in. I'm like, okay,
Into the calendar.
yeah,
Yep.
into those open spaces. And again, it doesn't always work that way. And I'm okay with that, right? Like I'm like, okay, things change, things will come up. You can adjust. I'm not so rigid that I have to get these 3 things done, but at least I have kind of a roadmap for the day. And then the day kind of unfolds versus things just happening if they happen kind of thing. But and then this is kind of awful, but if I'm out of that routine, then I'm kind of off my game.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Some of those early mornings, I'm like, oh, my routine will be off, but it really mentally and physically prepares me for what I'm going to do that day.
Got it. Yeah. One of the things, so that those are obviously, I guess, if you pick those 3 things, those in the Eisenhower matrix would be urgent and important. Right. And I think I do some semblance of that matrix when I was reading it, and I hadn't heard of it, so I was really excited to learn about it.
Yeah.
But I've never formally really done it.
Yeah.
But it's what I also liked is that you talk about things that are important but not urgent, and with those you want to schedule, like, if you can, like, 2 weeks from now, and then it reminds you, so it doesn't go away, but it's also not like in your face every day, right?
That's absolutely right. And the good thing is then you have a time to focus on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not constantly on your mind thinking, oh gosh, I got to get to that. I got to get to that,
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that throughout a thread is, if you can get things in a place that's not in your head, it's going to create less stress.
Yeah.
Right. Everything in its place, like figure out your time, figure out your tasks, but, put them in places where it's not just, front and center, creating anxiety.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It creates anxiety. It's sort of like lurking there. And so you can schedule them off. I warned you before we started this that I was just going to talk about to-do lists and task management, like almost the whole time.
I can talk about this stuff all day long. I don't mind.
I know, but your book is much more than that. So, so we can pivot, or I don't know if there's some topics you think are important for people to know that we can dive into. But again, otherwise I'm just going to keep going.
Yes, keep going. I love
it. Okay. So you talk in the book too, when it comes to to-do lists, that it sometimes is good to see the things that you've checked off. Like there's a mental thing there. Will you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. And this is a fun part of the app. Every time you complete a task, you can pick your sound. So you can pick fireworks or applause, or there's one that says, oh yeah, and it's kind of that Fitbit mentality, right? Like you accomplish something, when you get congratulated or reinforced or validated, it gives you that dopamine hit or whatever it is that makes you want to do it more, right? I mean, people respond to validation. That's a good thing. So why not for little tasks, right? And so there are times, and I know I'm not the only person that does this, where it's okay to, if you do a task, it comes up, you do it, you put it on your list just so you can cross it off. you know what? That's okay.
Yeah.
That counts as one of the 3 things you did. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
But there is something to be, to just, again, find what works for you, right? If it's if I complete a task and I go on social media, or I complete a task and I get to go call a friend, or what is that thing that motivates you to continue to do what needs to get done, and then reward yourself with the things that you actually enjoy doing. And honestly, at the heart of everything is this concept of, the more you learn how to manage your time, the more time you have to do the things you love.
Yeah. 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 I wrote down, you mentioned a quote, either you run the day or the day runs you. Yeah.
Right. And I think I see so many people who are just exasperated because they're just responding and trying to get through each day, and it doesn't sound or feel fun,
Mm,
right? So the whole idea is, if you can figure out how to make the most of your time, then you can make the most of your life.
yeah. When I start a morning and I go through my to-do list, again, either things I'm going to work on today, things I need to move to another day, push them down the road a little bit, things that I just,
Yeah.
say, hey, this is the 5th time I've written this. And then I get, for me, inbox 0. And then I look at my calendar, and once I walk away from that, I feel good. I'm like,
Yes.
I guess to your point, like that anxiety sort of gone. I go, okay,
Yeah.
I got today under control.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
power
And
there.
so one day at a time, or 1 hour at a time, whatever you can do. But it feels like it's almost relieving, right?
Mhm,
Like, okay,
mhm.
I can do this. I can manage this. And sometimes I'm not going to do everything,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
right.
okay.
Yep, that's right. As you wrote this book, I'm curious, did you like parking lot things that you're like, oh, that would be a new direction on a second book, or a different direction or the things that just didn't fit that you were like, 'cause that happens to me. So yeah, tell me about some of that.
Yeah, in fact, the hardest time, and I was telling the team this, by the way, they were fantastic to work with. The hardest thing was when I was finished and I would come up with more ideas. I was like, oh, wait, no, I can't put that in there because it's done, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, wait, I forgot to say this, right? Here's one more thing. So, yeah, you definitely get to the feeling. And again, I think it's the nature of what this is, right? It's not ever done.
Mhm.
It's,
Mhm.
it's a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. We're all work in progress. So, yeah, it was hard to kind of put a pin in it and say, this is it, because I
Yeah,
was like, wait, there's more.
that's right. That's right.
And
Um,
I haven't stopped trying things, right? Like, even the other day, I was like, wait, here's something I haven't tried before. So yeah, there'll be follow-ups. I just have to figure out what that looks like.
yeah, and what form that can take, and for sure, but I do feel like I can't remember. You have writing in your background? It was a really well-written book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I was a communications major. I worked at the collegiate newspaper. It was a daily student-run paper, so it
Mm,
was really like having a full-time job. And that's what I thought I wanted to do, was be a journalist, until I realized
yeah,
how difficult their lives are.
yeah. Yeah.
It's like, "Ooh, do I really wanna do this?" I mean, I think we saw 1 AM way too many
Oh,
times, I was like, "Wow, this would be a really hard lifestyle." So then I went into PR and communications. I definitely have a PR background, communications and writing, and then got on the internet bandwagon when it was really young, so in the early 90s.
mhm,
And that really kind of sent the trajectory of my life to more technology, media companies. Worked at Weather Channel and weather.com for 13 years, which was an amazing experience, because it was really taking it from a startup to
mhm,
building all of the functionality that we have. One of the coolest projects I got to work on was the mobile radar on your phone,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
When we
yep,
first did it, it was a flip phone with little green dots. I was like, who would ever want this? And now it's just a given,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I had a very fortunate experience of being able to marry my communications background with the emergence of technology that literally changed everything.
Nice. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Well,
And
I could
it was the
yeah.
same thing. It was, how do you use this technology and this internet thing to make things easier, better for everybody? And now, when I look for non-screen time, I'm like, "Oh, wait, I can't do this without the computer. I
Mhm.
can't do this without my phone. I can't, I
Yeah.
can't pay bills without it," So it's really interesting to see how very few things we have left that you can't do without some sort of screen.
Yeah, well, that's, like, that's kinda why I enjoy the Kindle, because it just, at least nothing's gonna ding while I'm reading my Kindle, but it's still a device, and my wife and I have this, it's interesting, we have this debate. and we're getting way off topic here, but I'll just I'll say this.
It all
Um,
ties to the same thing,
it,
though, because I think
it does.
the technology makes productivity a lot more challenging
Yeah.
and helpful,
Effective.
right? It's
Yeah,
good and
exactly.
bad.
It's exactly, but well, I think, again, like to me, maybe there's maybe there's a children's book in here. Because I don't know how young you would think a kid would need to be to start thinking about being productive, or thinking about what they're going to do for the day. So maybe it's a little bit more of a mindset, but
Yeah.
like in this day and age, and the fact that our schools really don't teach this stuff,
No.
it's critical.
Yeah.
It's so important, and there's so many young folks that I see, to your point, that join one of my companies that they don't have this in
No.
place, and so it's really tough, and then they get overwhelmed. And so, like, I just think it's so important. So I'll end by saying I'm so glad you wrote this book.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad you wrote it. Again, I think I told you I would have read it regardless of whether you published it with Ripples. It's fantastic. And I'll put links to the book and to your task management system in here, and ways that people can get in touch with you. But I love it, and I hope more people get it in their hands. I think I'll see you on Saturday at
Yes,
your
thank
event.
you.
Yep, I'm psyched to come and check it out and
Fantastic.
get my signed copy. But thanks for writing this. Thanks for joining me, and I just appreciate that you put this out into the world.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate your support.
Of course, I'll see you Saturday. All right, I think.